Today's Keys to the Commonwealth episode is brought to you by Nova Insurance. Are you a business owner or property manager in Kentucky or the surrounding states? Protecting your investment has never been more crucial. Nova Insurance specializes in commercial risk advising for your commercial business, as well as your commercial real estate and rental properties. With personalized service and expert advice, Nova Insurance ensures you are covered from every angle. Call 859-687-2004 today or visit them at novainsuranceGroup.com. Nova Insurance, securing your future one policy at a time. Now, today's episode. Welcome back to another Keys to the Commonwealth episode here. I'm excited for today's conversation as we've had this book for a little bit now, but my schedule's been crazy. His schedule's been crazy, I know, as he's got probably a lot more things in the irons in the fire than I do. But please welcome Tom Burrell to the show today. Tom, appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Landry, for having me.
Absolutely. So we've known each other, especially your son-in-law and daughter there for a long time, and your son-in-law, obviously, and myself grew up together for a lot of middle school, high school days, and so forth. But you now, you are the franchise owner of how many McDonald's is it
15.
Now? 15. Okay.
15 in Central Kentucky, 15. And we're in 13 communities.
15. That's right. So as we kind of start every episode out, hop back in the DeLorean, just kind of tell a little bit about yourself, your background. I know this is I think, a legacy business of sorts for you all and your family. Absolutely. As far as the franchise owners of McDonald's. And obviously that's changed a lot over the last couple of years. And right. But love to hear your stories. You've won some awards that we want to get into as well, as far as just leadership, how you treat employees, and things that I think we can learn from you today. So without further ado, how'd you get started in the McDonald's franchise ownership?
Well, first of all, Landry, thank you for having me on
Absolutely.
Here. So sort of a long story, but it all comes down to my mom and dad. They're the ones that took the risk. My dad, at 48 years old, he was in the monument business.
Okay.
And he always wanted to go into a different business. My grandfather and uncle and my dad were all in the monument business. And
when we say monument, we're talking like stone.
Burial vault, gravestone.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, gravestone.
Yeah, just want to make sure I was correct.
Yeah. I guess I'm the only person to ever have a dog with a little gravestone after our dog passed away in our neighborhood, which was pretty cool. But so gravestones.
Yeah.
And back then to get into McDonald's was a little bit different than nowadays. And perseverance on my dad's part. 48, like I said, 7 kids.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest sister, Gail, had just graduated University of Virginia. And got married, so she moved, to North Carolina and started her career in education. The other 6 of us all moved to Franklin,
Kentucky.
Franklin, Kentucky, right on the Tennessee line.
Yeah.
My brother had just graduated college, was teaching. My sister, Linda, who's also an owner-operator, Paul and Linda are owners.
Okay.
Was finishing college. The rest of us were either in high school or middle school. So a couple things about Franklin, Kentucky. First of all, in McDonald's, you are basically told the opportunities to go to start your restaurant.
Yeah.
And Franklin was it, right? So at the time, it was the second smallest city in the country to have a restaurant. So it was really a test.
Interesting. So this is the one your dad opened up.
Yeah. So my father did his training in Detroit, and then obviously came down to Kentucky, right, in 1974.
Okay.
And it was a big risk, not only moving 6 of your kids to Kentucky, but also to come to a small town. And the community was great. Franklin was great. You talk about people eating 2 or 3 times a day to help support us. But the bottom line is there were only about 4,500 people in 1974 in Franklin.
Yeah.
And, the numbers, I think, was the lowest volume sales around. Okay.
Okay.
And I mean, really, Landry, it's really perseverance of my parents, because it would be easy to throw the towel in, quit, but they kept going. And, McDonald's has been really good to my family. But the other thing about Franklin, I met my wife, Kathy, there, and obviously been married 41 years. So
like high school sweethearts or anything?
We didn't start dating till college.
Okay.
But I went to Western, she went to UK, but again, I'm thankful for my family. They were able to help me get in the business. I was one of the younger ones, so I was able to learn from Paul and Linda. And I'm so gracious for that.
Yeah. So they started it in what year again? Was it
74?
74 is when the Burrell family officially opened up, and we are technically celebrating 50 years.
We celebrated 50 in Franklin, Kentucky, Saturday.
That's awesome
celebration. My brother Paul, sister Linda were there. Yeah.
That's right. I heard you all were doing different prices based upon different decades. So, like, what was the earliest? What was it? That's kind of fun.
I do 15-cent hamburgers, whatever. But again, it's my brother's family. It's my niece and her husband. But they did a great job there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were finishing up college then. Was the goal for you always to kind of jump into that family business?
Yeah. Or, I think when you're young in high school, I guess I was young and dumb, right?
Oh, yeah.
I was worried about, what football, game I had or baseball or whatever. And who I'm going to hang out with. But when I got into college, probably about when I was about 20, I started like, man, this is a pretty good gig, and I had a great opportunity. I was able to learn from my dad and my brother, work with them for almost 20 years. My dad passed away 29 years ago. And at that time, McDonald's came to us and said, hey, we'd like you to basically, Paul, you go one way, Tom, you go the other. And so for the last 29 years, I've been on my own. But, I've had that foundation from my parents, from my brother, from my sister, who I still talk to all the time about work. And, I started with like 2 restaurants, and I built up to 20 at one time. And then we had a few that I've sold over the years.
Okay. Yeah. And in that respect, as far as I think blessing that you had, obviously, I think you would agree, so many times as either an owner of a business that you've kind of built, it can be kind of a lonely island of sorts without, and having family that you can kind of really rely on. And even if they're kind of your competition, sometimes you're like, you still need that to be able to kind of, and know that you're there for each other. So that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. It's nice to have a crutch, right?
Yeah.
But, again, I've been surrounded by great people. I have a lot of folks I've worked with for 30, 40 years that own part of the restaurants with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's the longest running employee you ever have or have?
So we just had somebody retired at 50, and we sent her to Hawaii.
Okay. And, 50 years working?
Yeah, 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're from the beginning. They're in Franklin?
Yeah.
Sent her to Hawaii.
No, that was in Elizabethtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elizabethtown. Yeah. But that to that point, though, I mean, we can kind of switch topics back to just, the idea of running an agency really is you end up becoming a family because or at least from the owner side of things, it ends up being a family, right? You got employees, you got managers, and there's a bit of a weight or burden to obviously that you're, taking care of people in some respect, providing opportunity and jobs and wanting to do the best and create a good environment for them. So back to that point about with your employees and stuff like that and sending her to Hawaii. I mean, that's awesome. And I know you all recently worn the Fred Turner. Fred Turner
was
Award.
Ray Kroc's right-hand person.
Okay.
It's again, Landry, any award that I have received over the years, I realize it's because of people I work with. They're the foundation.
That's right.
But yeah, it's a big honor. We were able to go to Spain. It is the top 1% of the owners in the world.
Okay.
So there were 15 of us in the U.S. and total of 40. So
is that given every year?
Given every other year.
Every other year.
Every other year. And it's the top award you can get at McDonald's.
And to that point, though, what are the things that you all have done that with employees with like I said, it becomes a bit of a family. When you're kind of really taking care of people's needs, trying to provide a good work environment for them and so forth. So what have you all done, or what are the things you've learned over the last, 50 years in essence in that respect?
Well, number one, treat people with kindness, right? Do unto others you want them to do unto you. We have a lot of programs to help. We have 1,100 employees, so you can imagine the different needs that are out there. We have a generosity fund, which confidential. If somebody needs help for the rent, if they need new tires, medical procedures, we jump in to help out. We have it's called Archways to Opportunity. Any McDonald's you go to, we can help pay for your college. We have folks that are getting their high school diploma. We have some that are getting their MBAs, some that are getting their technical degree or college degree. We have some that are getting learning English.
Okay,
yeah. So
is that a McDonald's program or is that?
Yeah, that's a program.
Okay.
Now, one program that my wife years ago, when I started on my own, she was, we're really big on education. Both of my grandparents on one side were teachers. My sister's a teacher. We started paying high school kids for grades back then. And back then it was like, what do you mean you're doing that? And then we started paying college kids for grades. So now McDonald's US are doing the college side. So I'm really proud of that we were able to do the educational piece. We look at our 401k. Now we're at 100% max to 6%.
Really?
So so what I try to do, Landry, I try to sit down with every person, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm going to sit down with Audrey and Scott, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk to 150 managers, groups of 8 or 10, and it's all going to be first, hey, how can we help you in your life, right? What are your goals in life? And then, what are the goals for the restaurant? What I found out is the happier you are in the restaurant, you do a better job.
Yeah. And that's probably so true from the standpoint of that within the idea of, it's pretty obviously from, fast food, McDonald's and so forth, that really that's usually either a stepping stone career probably for most, absolutely. Or a lot of times the beginning career, first job for most, a lot of kids or something like that. I didn't do the McDonald's route, but I went to Chick-fil-A route early on in high school and so forth like that. And, I've always thought fondly of that experience because I had a good owner operator of that location. Right. And I'm sure you could have bad ones for certain things. I'm sure you could tell me a ton of horror stories in respect to that.
There's good and bad. Some of our restaurants run better than others.
Sure.
I think what you learned though was about probably working as a team. Mm-hmm. You probably learned how to work public. You probably learned how to responsibility. It's a tricky thing. So a 15 or 16-year-old comes in there. My goal is to help them learn life lessons, right? And then hopefully they go on to college or technical school or whatever they want to do, military. But I can tell you, Landry, we have a lot of folks that are educators, accountants, medical, legal, lawyers, and they all come back to me and they say, Tom, all what I learned from you and learned from McDonald's, that it helped me so much in my career.
And because you're the face of that in that respect. So really they're saying McDonald's, yes, and there's some opportunities there, but it's more of a testament to you, I think, for sure, as the owner and operator side of things. Because I say good things about, my time at Chick-fil-A, but really that was because of my boss and the operator at that point in time, for sure. And we're still good friends to this day. He's a client of mine and everything now, which is kind of fun in that sense. But which was also funny because I went from that career where the customer is always right. Yep. Then I went into banking for a short period of time where the customer is wrong until proven right. So I kind of got a little bit of a healthy balance there.
Yeah, it's tough. Working in quick service or fast food, whatever you want to call it, is tough, right? Yeah. Because you've got young people. We make mistakes. And nobody's perfect, right? Mm-hmm. And you have some folks that are having a bad day and they like to take it out on somebody, and life's sometimes not fair.
But if you're getting back to treating people the way you want to treat them, we're trying to love people type of scenario. You're right. Absolutely. Like everyone's going to have bad days, and just because they're taking out on me doesn't mean that they're really upset at me or something like that in that respect. But talk about obviously 50 years. We're talking probably obviously a lot of changes in that time in that sense. And are there any of those changes that you can distinctly remember that you're like, I don't think this is going to work out, or maybe it did, or maybe things that you've really enjoyed or wish were still around?
Okay, when I started, drive-thrus were just starting, right?
Okay.
Nowadays, obviously I can't share a lot of public information.
Sure.
You can Google anything you want. But 75% of the business now goes through the drive-thru.
Okay, I was going to say it's probably at least more than 50%.
Yeah. But when I started, it was 10, 15, and now people are busy, right? They're going from soccer practice or wherever, and
I feel like the drive-thru is the number one spot where if you're not working well as a team, that's the part you're going to immediately see that.
Absolutely.
A literal backup of.
Absolutely. So, the menu has changed. It was smaller and now it's gotten bigger. But, I think that it's still a people business, number one. And it will always be a people business. And the ones that do well on the people side, I always tell our folks, I said, hey, look at whatever restaurant you're working at, if you can do good with the employees and the customers, you'll do well. We spend a lot lot of time on our people, our listening sessions. And I think it's helped us a lot.
What are some of the biggest lessons that, if you're speaking to Tom back, in the 80s, kind of taking over some of the parents' industry there and stuff like that, you wish you would have known now, or could you, if you would tell yourself, I guess, because I think that's always a good tell as far as wisdom that you've learned. And I'm excited to have that experience myself of, where I can hopefully tell somebody something that I wish I would have known.
I think work-life balance is so important, right? I'll give you a little story. My grandfather, it was right before I got married.
Okay.
He was sick, and I think he was telling me that, hey, Tom, everything's going to be okay. But he sat down with me, he said, and it was nothing about McDonald's, but it was about life. He said, Tom, he goes, if the one thing I wish everybody could do, when they first get married, they work hard, and then their kids grow and they're gone, and you got plenty of time to do other things. If we could all take more time to be at home, our spouse,
the kids,
and the kids, to balance. You don't want to miss those things.
And that's a point. I think for sure someone told me, or I kind of saw that in that respect early on. But I think it's more true when we talk about work-life balance. I think the part that's not talked about is the fact that really work-life balance is probably even more important during that age of like 30s or something, my 30s and stuff like that, because that's where the grind, the sleepless nights that you're trying to make it and type of thing in a business world, but yet you're usually getting lack of sleep from having small children. And as we're right around the corner from turning 40, and in some ways I'm like, you know what, 40s are sounding pretty good. That the grind of being in your 30s between work, trying to do the work-life balance, young kids, sleepless, you're trying to just make ends meet sometimes and figure it out. And unfortunately that your eldest child's just thrown into a world where you're probably poor trying to make it. And you're like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here yet type of scenario. The youngest child, usually feels like you're to the oldest, like you got born into a really wealthy family by that point if you're doing well. But that work-life balance is so important, I think, in your 30s, more so than anything.
It is. Yeah. Sense. I mean, hey, I've been there, Landry, and, I know what you're going through. Hang in there, right?
Right.
But yeah, the lessons I learned over the years, I really go back to I'm being repetitious on this, but it's a people business.
Yeah.
The way you treat people, have a vision, have goal setting. I think God gave us a set of ears for a reason. Listen, I get so much from just talking to the employees I work with, and they'll give me ideas. Like tomorrow we're going to have a milestone celebration.
Okay.
And we're going to recognize people 5, 10, 15, 20 years on up, right? And I can think of, just in an example, somebody that'd been with us 30 years, right? I sat down with her when she was a junior in college, starting her senior year. My wife said, you need to talk to her because she's really, really good, Tom. And I said, hey, what are your goals in life? She goes, I want to own a business. I want to help people. And like, okay, here's what I want you to do. Finish your degree and come work with us. I'll figure it out. So now this person now owns part of 3 restaurants with me. McDonald's is wanting her to go in and be an operator. And I would definitely do anything I can do to help her. But I think things like that, you just have to find out, what is your goal in life? How can I help you? It all come back.
The culture aspect is really cool. Obviously, hearing these stories and looking at this, and I've seen some recent people in my industry that have done similar things, and it's clear that, like you said, that if you kind of you almost reap what you sow in that respect, for sure. And that obviously McDonald's is not mandating a lot of these things that you have implemented or done implemented with your employees into the business, for sure.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's a great training, company, but at the end of the day, there are things that, we do that we think can help our restaurants, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's a great foundation. But people leave because of poor training or poor treatment. And we talked a lot about the people sides, the treatment, but training, we all learn different in school. So I think you got to be patient, when you're dealing with young people.
I'm sure that patience is how we had to grow over the decades. But
I've been there.
Yeah.
I know what it's like. You have good days and bad days. I read a devotional today, and it talked about change. And some days we have a good day, and some days not so good, right? sort of like the restaurant industry. You come in a restaurant, things are going well, and then all of a sudden, they turn real quick. But that's life.
Yeah.
Right.
I hear you. And so 50 years, I mean, so I assume, and you don't have to go into, where you're going from here, but obviously I would assume some aspects of keeping the Burrell family and McDonald's, and where do you think McDonald's maybe is going as far as that goes? Any thoughts to that respect at all?
As far as,
I mean, so you've seen the hills and valleys of where McDonald's has been, type of scenarios. There's like anything exciting coming up that is.
I think I can't share something. I think you'll find something out first of the year as far as, maybe different promotion that'll be pretty good.
Okay. Okay.
As far as the buildings, I think you'll see, probably smaller lobbies because more people are using drive-throughs and curbside and delivery and things like that.
Talk about that. Because obviously we talk about this being a people business, for sure. But that brings up a good point that in some ways it has become it's become more transactional, even more so nowadays, where you have the kiosk and lobbies and so forth.
Correct.
How have you all had to kind of balance that in that respect, or what have been the challenges from that perspective?
Yeah, well, I think, the pandemic, I think, not that we had a large percent that came in to the restaurant to sit down, but after the pandemic, I think it's even dwindled more. And I think people are just finding there's other convenient ways to get their food, right? Yeah. You can do curbside, right? Yeah. And you can place your order and go through the drive-thru if you want, kiosk. Staffing is always going to be, we do not use a recruiting service. I know some people do, but everything I do is through referrals, you know? And
it's the best type of
knock on wood. Yeah. Knock on wood. Obviously we have a bonus program for every person in the restaurant, even a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, some type of bonus program. But we do have a referral program where if I was to refer you, I would get some money and obviously you'd get money. Stuck around.
I would assume these programs are self-created and not normal, not normal in most environments. Or?
Yeah. So, the one thing that Audrey's been really a big help, we've been able to go out to other McDonald's organizations out, when I say, 4 or 5 state area, and share our booklet with corporate. We've done a lot of Zoom calls, and we have people come visit us all the time. But I really think, Landry, the more money you spend, the more you get in return. And sometimes people say, I don't agree with that, but I can show you our bonus program and what we're getting back. Like an example, our management turnover is like half of what the U.S. average is, and there's a lot of, I think it's a hidden cost. A lot of people don't look at, the turnover cost.
Well, I was going to point to that exact point because I was like, you're going to probably spend the money one way or the other. Yeah, they're in turnover, and that's a cost to turnover and retraining and so forth.
Training, and then like you said, it costs a lot of money to train people. And you don't want that cycle. It's tough,
and it's much easier and much more happier and much more efficient. To, I think, spend the money on the training, the people that you've got there. Yeah, and it's so easy from an entrepreneur's or business owner standpoint to kind of like start looking at maybe there's this business opportunity over here or this business opportunity over here, and sometimes it's best just let's just buckle down on what we know and how we're doing that and make that the best it can be. Right. A long time works itself out, becomes much more of an easier solution down the line. If you, like you said, if you're just resilient, especially like your parents were at the beginning there, and to kind of to work through that and so forth. So that's awesome.
But you going back to the legacy, I'm so proud. I don't know what the future will be, as far as my restaurants. Obviously Audrey and Scott, I think they're going to go a different direction. They're fantastic at what they do, and
I didn't know about the whole family aspect, obviously, until that aspect of. So how many Burrells now are still in it?
So my brother Paul has several kids involved, and they have 23 restaurants. And then Linda and her daughter Emily have, I think, 4 or 5. Okay, they're in Clarksville, Tennessee. Paul's based in Bowling Green.
Okay, so either way, there will still be Burrell family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is super cool to see in that sense. As far as I go, what have you personally been learning lately, you think? Because I feel like everyone likes to say, oh, what have you learned over the last few years or your lifetime? But, I think I'm one of that, like I'm never going to hopefully stop learning in that respect and hopefully never get to an age where I think I know everything. So is there anything lately that you have been learning or something like that?
I've learned my whole life, right? When I was your age, I was learning from The great thing about, I didn't share this, when my dad passed away 29 years ago, I had so many long-term McDonald's operators come up to me, and they, like I was their, stepson or whatever. And I learned from them. I learned from Paul. I learned from Linda. I think you got to keep your mind going. You got to listen to the generations. Every generation's different. I think my generation, you just worked your tail off, right?
That's right.
But I think the generation I'm working with now, I think they need to be they want to know how they're doing, right? Good or bad. I mean, we're all a little bit different. I think it's really important mission at the work. We try to do, obviously the Ronald McDonald House is our charity of choice, but we also try to work in the communities, which I think is really important. And the young folks out there, they're great workers. I hear, sometimes people complain about, oh, it wasn't, 30 years ago. It's not 30 years now, right? You gotta figure out how to do this.
Do you think it's more of, used to be such a transactional job of like learning skills that now it's more of, like you said, they wanted to know that they have a voice type of scenario. Absolutely. Even more so?
I think it's important. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so obviously going to having these meetings and saying, how can we help you? Obviously I could see how really there probably wasn't much of a transition needed, but like maybe some businesses or owners or operators are probably struggling more so even more today if they hadn't inputted and implemented the things that you've already been doing.
I think, Landry, it doesn't matter if it's a restaurant or if it's retail or whatever. I just go back to the people side.
Yeah.
I think that would be my one tip for anybody is just spend the time talking to your employees. You got to be approachable, right? Yeah. You got to be visible. You got to have, you gain trust, right? You gain trust. I mean, I'm really proud of over the years, the money we've spent in the communities, and they've been a great advocate for us, the schools and all that, but that's been a great resource. It's a two-way thing, right? Yeah. If we can help the schools, they're going to help us.
And being a people business, as we obviously are, especially from the employee's perspective, it's easy for business owners, I think, especially in my field or others, I'm sure, to kind of take things a lot more personally if someone leaves or does this or that, in that sense. But I've always said, like, within my agency here, obviously I run an insurance agency, it's the actual main job, but like, I'm going to make it very easy for people to come into the agency as far as a clientele or as an employee. I'm also, if you're a better opportunity or you're not happy or something like that, I'm going to make it just as easy for you to leave and walk out that door. Right. Because who wants to burn a bridge? I don't want to ever burn a bridge because I've had plenty of people walk back in the door, and especially from an employee's side as well.
I've found that over the years too, Landry, a lot of people leave, and they'll come back, right? Yeah, you don't want to burn bridges. Right. I mean, and you want somebody, if they can find something in their career or whatever they want to do, that's what life's about. Right? This
is my career. This doesn't mean it is your career, or that I'm, who am I to tell you that this is going to be your career? But I'll give you, as you would probably say, give you every opportunity to do as much as you can, or as much as I can help you with in that sense. And that's all we can do at the end of the day. And obviously, like I said, hopefully I think those rewards will return themselves. So obviously treating people that way for sure. So,
absolutely.
Wrapping up the last few bits, what are as far as not the McDonald's industry side of things, when you've had a lot of McDonald's, I'm sure, over the last couple of years, but is there any kind of a local Kentucky restaurants or some of your favorites? You put me on the
spot here, right?
I don't have to. I'll give you a pass if you don't want to.
No. My wife actually and I went out to eat last night, but I'll tell you, I love Italian food.
Okay.
Right. And I'll put a plug in, there's several good ones here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to say names.
No, you're good.
But,
yeah.
But
the non-chain ones.
There's a lot of great restaurants out there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's good. And then what do you all like to do outside of that's for fun?
Yeah. So obviously grandkids are very important. Been very blessed to see part of the country that we probably spend a lot of time out west. I think you know that. Love that.
I think it took me traveling more outside of the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
I appreciate a lot of parts of Kentucky, or a lot of parts of the U.S. now that I've traveled, but also it made me appreciate Kentucky even more so, I think, and what we have here too, that I never really thought, realized or underappreciated.
So later, I've lived in 5 cities in Kentucky in my life, right? Okay. I've lived in Franklin, Bowling Green, Glasgow, E-Town, and Lexington. And they're all beautiful, and you got lakes, you got rivers, you got mountains, you got urban, rural,
Yeah.
horse country, whatever. And Kentucky is a great state. Commonwealth.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Commonwealth. I love it. I believe it. Well, I don't want to keep it too much time. I appreciate all those insights, and it's been really cool to kind of see and hear some of the stories. Glad we were able to kind of document this. And if anybody ever wanted to reach out and to touch with you, is there a way to do so that you could kind of give some plug here?
Yeah, absolutely. You want my email?
If you want, whatever you want to give, if you don't have to, obviously.
No. It's tom.burrell2, BURRELL2 at Gmail. That'd be the safest way.
There you go.
I don't want to give up my cell phone number.
No. Absolutely not. I know how that is, but no, it's really cool, and to see what you all have done, where you've been, and like I said, I didn't even know the whole history within the family side of things, and that's really cool. And I appreciate I think this pin here that you gave me to mark the 50 years there with the Burrell family. So
thank you.
That's gonna be a pretty special opportunity. And then hopefully that's my goals. Now in my mind, I'm like, I got to be able to kind of put a pin together, maybe at some different marks or some different years or some end goals. And like you said, you got to shoot for some goals to kind of hit and so forth. And I'm sure you've exceeded all your goals you even thought were even possible. My goal in life is this is cliche, right? Right.
It's just to help people, right?
Yeah.
I want at the end of my career is, I've been able to help a lot of next generation operators from their families want to talk to me, and that's what I want to do. I want to help others, and I want somebody 20 years from now say, I worked at McDonald's and it helped me, and he was a pretty good guy.
Yeah, and like you had people that did that for you early on. I've had people early on over the last 10 years do that for me that I was like, I don't know why you didn't really owe me. You don't owe me anything. You didn't have to type of scenario. But can't wait to be able to kind of do that myself for sure.
I'm a big letter writer. Okay. So I'll send letters, like you may get a bonus, right? But I might put, a letter in there and you'd be surprised how many people, hey, Tom, I keep all those letters that you sent me, those little cards, little gift cards or whatever.
That's awesome.
And, it's,
that might be the biggest tip in this podcast right there. Actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like I'm sure your kids, every little thing that they, pictures and all that, you keep all that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's funny. So, well, Tom, appreciate your time here, and we will see everybody back here next time on the Keys to Commonwealth podcast. Appreciate it, Tom.
Landry. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.